Welcome back, everybody. It's Seymour Mack, and Happy New Year. Welcome to 2021, where it is just as crazy as last year, so I guess really no difference there. Today's video was a long one, I know, but trust me, you're going to want to watch the whole thing, all the way through to the end. I sat down with a good friend of mine, a mentor of sorts, and certainly somebody that I look up to, Peter Mackey of Mackey Photo and Video. This is basically a podcast, which actually sounds like a great idea. It's funny, it's knowledgeable, we had a good time. Just put it on and let it play while you're doing the dishes or something. We're calling it Seymour Mackey.
Welcome to Seymour Mack.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Welcome. This is the first episode of Seymour Mackey. I like the name.
Yeah, boy.
It feels right. This is Peter Mackey of Mackey Photo and Video, and we're here on Main Street, Strasburg. I'm just coming to shoot the shit, and I figured I'd just ask you a couple questions and
Hell yeah.
trying to deep dive and figure out how the hell you got here.
Yeah, man.
Because it's really, really cool. So, what's awesome is our kids are the same age. So, you know, they were going to karate before the pandemic, obviously.
Yep.
And we were having lots of conversations. I was just like picking your brain all the time. Like, hey, man, I used to create and I used to do this and that.
Yeah.
And you really got me motivated again to be able to, I don't know, just kind of take the leap back into being creative again.
Yeah.
And, you know, I used to make music and then I started making videos and then I kind of just stopped doing everything.
Yeah.
So, you know, let's flash back before we get into your kind of backstory.
Yeah.
Let's flash back to that time because without that conversation, I'm not here today sitting with you today.
It's amazing.
So it's really, really cool. And that was about, we were talking about it was like a year ago,
Yeah.
right? Like last Christmas.
Yep.
And I was just like, man, I feel like crap. I haven't created anything.
Yep.
I'm missing it.
Yep.
And like you basically got me motivated. It was you. It was a couple other people.
Yeah.
It was really like one or two other people. But you were, I would say, the catalyst for me kind of switching in my head going, what am I waiting for?
It's amazing. Yeah. And for me, it's interesting to hear like the other side of it too, because for me, we met it was like the karate Christmas party, right?
Yeah.
And like we were hanging out or whatever. And that's when we started talking. I was like, oh, I like this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you had just like some energy about you that you were like, hey, I'm like into this stuff, but I'm kind of like not doing it. And I'm like, do it.
Just do it.
Like, why you're not doing it then? But the fact that like you dusted yourself off over, you know, sometimes it takes.
It took a while.
Yeah, sometimes it takes years. But also, like, you found your wife, you got married, you got the house, you did the kid. You did a lot of the things that like you probably weren't going to be able to do if you were tour like out on the road.
100%.
Christy wouldn't have been putting up with it. She'd be like, bro.
Oh, we couldn't buy a house.
Right.
You know, so in that time of not focusing on being creative, I really focused on just going to work.
Yeah.
You know, just being a working man.
Hey.
Just going at a 9 to 5, getting paid. And with that, we were able to buy the house and we're able to provide, you know.
Yeah, responsibility.
So, yeah, you know, so like that kind of brings it to the next evolution, the next phase, which is like when do I get comfortable enough and secure enough with this to where I could start phasing out of that?
Yep.
And that was kind of where that conversation was on that Christmas party, right?
Exactly.
We were talking about where you got your start and then so like when you got into doing photo and video, right? Because you were doing video as well at the beginning, right? But before that, you were just working a job. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. So like kind of how it worked and like what did you, like, before we met, did you know that I did stuff, or did you learn that day when we talked?
No, so I always knew, so I knew Brenda, right, in high school, right?
Yeah,
so we always had some association there. And then I knew you from doing Moses' wedding. And just seeing you around. Like, you know, I mean, you get around.
Yeah, gotcha.
You've been around the block
and I don't know,
times.
and, like, I don't know that. Like, that's the thing that, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know, like, the outside thing of, like, did you know this is Mackey who's shooting, or, like... And we're like, oh, that's cool. Like, I like that too. Let's see what the hell's going on. Like,
no, I think when I realized that our kids were going to karate together, and then we started kind of like shooting the shit a little bit. Like, I already knew that you were a really dope photographer, right?
Cool.
So I already had that in my mind. Like, okay, I'm already thinking, because when we started talking, I was already talking to my friend about it. And I was trying to convince myself, like, just get back into it.
Do it.
Just do something.
Yeah.
Anything. Just pick a camera back up, anything.
Yeah.
And then so I went into our conversations with the mindset of, okay, I could pick this guy's brain and maybe I can get a little nugget from it and hold on to that and use that to inspire, right? Myself. So, Yeah, I already knew
Cool.
that you were a photographer. I already knew the level of photography I felt like you were at, which was like unattainable.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
It's
me,
attainable.
in
But
my
yeah, cool.
perspective.
Yeah.
So-
Nice. Wow. All right. So so that's funny because like I don't know like how any of that. I just kind of know my lane, and I'm just like this is what I'm doing, and oh cool, what do you do? And like I'm happy to like inspire or like transfer any sort of like I'm like that's how I've always been, and that's cool because I don't know like I guess the vibe of like somebody saying like will I be able to like talk to this? Can I get something out of this person?
Yeah.
Can I like I don't know what that is, but I've always been the type of person that's like, yeah, man, let's do it. Let's all be successful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to be able to do that and then have you be like, fuck, man, I'm inspired was like, hell yeah.
Yeah,
dude.
no, it was a huge help, man. I don't think, and I know I've told you this a couple times. Like,
Yeah.
yo, man, that really helped me.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but I think I want you to understand, like, literally, without that conversation, we're not sitting here.
Yeah.
I don't have this camera. I don't have this.
It's fucking
You know what I'm
amazing.
saying? We're not doing this interview. Like, we're not
Yeah.
sitting down. We're not even talking to each other.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I'm still in a place then where I'm like thinking about getting back into it, and I'm fearful of talking to somebody
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you because, you know, like I think I get in my own way, and I think a lot of people do this,
Yeah.
right? Where you start convincing yourself of certain things that like are on it, like I just said to you, like you're this photographer that's unattainable,
Right.
Like the level of skill that you have is like unattainable,
Yeah.
to me, right? And
Yeah.
and I think it's easy to convince yourself of these things.
Yeah.
It's harder, but it's possible to convince yourself of the opposite, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, yeah, I've been out of it for 5 years, but it doesn't mean shit.
No.
All I got to do is get back. Just
It's funny.
brush it
I
off. That's
tell
it.
people when I'm teaching them too. Like I tell them like, listen, if I stopped taking photos today, and you don't, in 5 years, you're way better than I am.
Yeah.
Like that's as simple as it is.
Yeah.
And that's take that for any person and any like situation, right? Outside of like an NBA star or something like that. Like in 5, I just won't be there. I'm not
Yeah.
built the right way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in anything like creative or anything where like you enter this like field, it's like just keep getting better. And then the other people that are going to keep getting better, hopefully they're still doing it and you could still be like, look, you always want to have like mentors or people above you. But at the same time, if somebody like pulls out, they're like, I'm out. You're going to keep moving. They stayed right here and you're
Yeah.
just going to keep going.
Yeah.
So that's what's really cool. And it was crazy because like I remember when you messaged me and we're like, yo, you really inspired me. Like I'm jumping back in, I'm doing this, doing that. And we started like kind of shooting the shit on like whatever. Maybe you're talking about what gear you were getting, whatever it was. Like me telling Brenda and her just being like, hell yeah. Like that'd be like celebrating that already as a win.
Yeah.
Like just the fact that you're like heading back into it was like celebrated as a win on our end. Just
Oh,
to
that's
let you know.
awesome.
Like
Yeah,
us being
yeah,
like,
yeah.
fuck yeah, dude.
Like, all right, we did it.
Yeah,
we
so,
got to somebody.
Yeah. So it's like I think everybody has this like sphere of influence that they can have, right? And like to be able to connect like this, like this sphere just got a little bigger, right?
Yeah.
Like mine and yours intersected, and now mine bumps out this way a little, yours bumps out
It's
that
like
way
a
a
Venn
little.
diagram, right?
Yeah.
Where we share commonalities in the middle.
Yep.
And even our network, we share commonalities in the
Exactly.
network, but you have a whole nother network, whole
Yeah.
other skill set, and I might over here. And then
Exactly.
if we don't start networking with each other, then how does that grow, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I interviewed a friend of mine who's he's a director, he's a cinematographer in Queens. He does like a lot of music videos.
Cool.
And we talked about something similar to what you just said, which was like, you know, if you stop taking pictures now and the other person keeps going, well, he's gonna be better than you, right?
Yeah.
And it was a very similar conversation I had with him, and I was just like, dude, like, I feel like now I have to catch up. It's
Right.
funny because we were in a position where you were looking up to me as a mentor, and now in a short amount of time, now it just switched.
That's it.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not ashamed
Yeah,
by
because
it.
you get it though too. When you look at it and you're like, oh, like cut to 5-6 years later, you're like, oh, you just kept doing the work.
You just kept going.
That's
Yeah.
it.
And I sat on my hands.
And that's what I think it is too. Like a lot of people like have ideas about how success or how like all of this stuff kind of works, and it's like you just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
Like as long as you're putting one foot in front of the other, you're constantly kind of like you're constantly moving ahead,
Yeah.
right? So that's important. And I think like with competition in a sense like that, right? You're like, oh, this guy, we're at the same level, and then he's here. It's like everybody's got this like their own path to walk, right? So in competition, and also that's the same reason why like I freely try to like help and be nurturing to other people, is that like there's a community that's above the competition, right? It's really like if you're working from like a fierce like mindset, like of like there's not enough, and there's like, you know, I'm gonna be poor if this guy like winds up like getting gigs. You know what I mean? It's like, then that will be true for you.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, just, you know, so it's like if you think about it the other way, like, yo, if Mike does awesome, that means that like his family can do better and there's more happiness there, and then like I feel good about that, it makes me more like it starts to bring everybody up, right? It's that like that rising tide lifts all boats type of deal.
Yeah, and I think now, and I don't know if you see the same thing, but I feel like now, just in the time, like if you look over the past 5 years, 10 years, or whatever, I feel like the mentality was more of I got to get mine first before you can get yours.
Yeah.
And now, in general, there's a lot of people who are saying, but if I help this person get theirs, I'm going to get mine too.
Yeah.
You know, it's like people are more willing to collaborate and network with each other. And I think people realize that's the better route to go.
Yeah.
That's the route of positivity. That's the route of progression and movement.
Yeah.
And like, you don't get stifled in that, right?
Exactly.
And like, somebody told me, and I'm sure you heard the same thing. It's like, if you want to be rich, surround yourself with rich people. Right?
Yeah.
You got to surround yourself with the type of people that you want to be like.
Exactly.
Right? So when I started coming back into this, and I'm like, well, I want to be a good videographer. I want to be able to shoot some good videos.
Yep.
And even if they're just YouTube videos, I want those to even be good enough and well enough and entertaining enough to where if one person watches it and they laugh, they giggle out
You're
loud.
like, oh, cool.
It's
I'm
working.
Good. Yeah, it's working.
I don't need 1 million subscribers. I just need one who's like, wow, that was funny. You know, let's see what the next one brings.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like where I'm at now. So I got to be honest, I really like where this conversation is going. We're talking about, you know, building that network and staying positive and helping each other out. And that's really the mindset that I'm going into 2021 with. So I think we're off to a good start so far. With that being said, most of the people who are going to view this video are not subscribers to the channel, so please consider subscribing to the channel. I think it's something like 85-90% are not subscribers, so that would really help me out in getting me to my goal for the end of this year, which is 1,000 subscribers. We'll circle it back around to that very first conversation we had, which was super inspirational, which brings us here today.
Yeah.
But what happened for you? Like, where'd you start out? Like, so before you started going full-time photography or even videography, what were you doing before that? And was there a similar moment where somebody was like, hey, this is your dream, then you got to go do it? Or did you?
No, it was almost it's like almost the opposite, right? So like for me, I started at I went to PV, then I went to ESU, right? So I went to ESU. My mom was working there, so it was like that's the only place I could go, really, right? I got like okay grades, passed in school, whatever, but like I could go to ESU, right? So like go to ESU. I'm studying to be a science teacher. Why?
Yeah.
I like to look up at the stars and be like, whoa, and talk about aliens.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, so that doesn't work once I got into like higher level science classes and like Buckley, the astronomy professor up there, is like, okay, Pete, like I love you and you're cool, but like you don't have physics 4. You're not.
You don't know shit.
You're not this guy.
Yeah, you're not.
Right?
You look like a science teacher.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's as far as it goes.
You're not this guy, right? And it was funny because even the kids in the class that were like, they were like I was sitting next to Stephen Hawking. And I was like a stoner, like whatever kid. You know what I mean? So like it just wasn't lining up. So for me, I was in a creative writing course, a script writing course, and we were reading The Hobbit. And our final presentation of the year, our final project for this class was do something Hobbit related. That's as specific as this project got, right? And it was like, I'll say this as nice as I can, but the teacher was this big, rotund, round woman who loved The Hobbit, right? Like she could have been in The Hobbit.
She
like
was The Hobbit.
Yeah. So like, great lady, she was beautiful, but like her whole thing was, hobbits love to drink beer, so bring some root beer. Hobbits love to eat food, so bring the food. So basically, this lady was like, hey, for your final, guys, bring a bunch of shit for us to eat and drink, and everyone gets an
Everybody
A.
passes.
Right?
Wow.
So all semester, I'm not reading The Hobbit.
Yeah.
I'm asking my friend Phil. I'm reading the Clip Notes things right before class, just enough to be like, yeah, he threw some shit into the Mordor and the ring, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So for the final project, I was like, what are we going to do? So me and Phil got together and we sat down on the couch, similar like this, and we're like, what are we gonna do? And we started talking about it. I was like, let's make a video where two guys are figuring out what to do for their final, and a hobbit knocks on the fucking door. What would happen? So that's what we did. So I made The Lord of the Rings 2000. That was the year.
Yeah.
So this is, what, 5 years before Lord of the Rings was even a movie?
Yeah.
So, like, we made it first.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was just a book at that point.
We did it first. So we made this movie. We rolled a freaking AV cart into the room. And she's like, oh my, what's happening here? Everybody's drinking
movie.
fucking root beer and eating cake and stuff like that. And we play this movie. And I'll have to show it to you because I just digitized it like recently off of a VHS tape. And it was ridiculous. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was to the point where months later in school, people would be like, yo, dude, that's the Hobbit. Yeah. Like, so shit like that was like what was going on. And the teacher said to me at the end of the class, she goes, what major are you? And I was like, oh, I'm an Earth and Space Science major. And she goes, really? I go, yeah. And she's like, oh, okay. And she's like, if you need a letter to get into the MCOM department, let me know. I go, what's MCOM? She goes, well, that's where the kids make videos and shit like that. Like, it's media communications. I go, oh, all right. So the next conversation I had with my advisor, which always was like, I went there with my head down, like, and the guy was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
You're sucking in all of these classes,
you're
right?
not good.
Yeah, like you're just not good at this.
You're not doing great.
Why are you going to be a teacher? I was like, because people said I would be a good teacher. Because I have a nice personality, I guess, or I can engage with people. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, other than that, it wasn't like because I know a lot about one subject.
And because I love it.
Yeah. I knew nothing about anything.
Yeah.
And I knew at that point I didn't want to go from school to another school. Like, you go from high school to college back to high school again?
Yeah, no.
I was like, fuck that. I was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I switched into MCOM, and I was in script writing class at the time too, and I could analyze films. And I could come up with whatever. I could find the themes of them and do a pretty good job. And the guy Lippert, who was the professor there, was like this elitist kind of asshole guy to a lot. I mean, he would make kids cry in class. It was fucking amazing.
One of those guys.
And I was like, whoa.
Yeah. But
he said to me the one day, he goes, what's your deal? What are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm switching over to MCOM. And he goes, MCOM? He goes, what do you want to be, a button pusher your whole life? He goes, they could fucking train monkeys to do that. So what he thought of MCOM was like, you're just working a switcher, or you're doing, and I was like,
it's not creative.
Yeah, I was like, this fucking guy. I was like, well, whatever, I'm doing it. So I did that. So I switched into that, and I did that for 2 years. I was already in college for 3. So now I have to take every course in a row in MCOM. Mm-hmm. Most students take 1 or 2 and then take gen eds. I took all of them, just like condensed. Yeah. Got a 4 point, like, switched my GPA from like a 1 point something, literally, to like a 4.0 every semester. Got out of there, interned at a place called MedStar TV in Allentown. We did forensic files. Okay. So I worked in television. So now I'm freelancing in TV for 5 years, right? So,
and you're doing, what are you doing?
So I started as a production assistant. So I'm just carrying Apple boxes and fucking setting up lights and doing stuff like that. But we were doing recreations of the murders for Forensic Files. Okay. So we were blowing shit up. We were throwing people off bridges.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we killed somebody new
and where
every
was
weekend.
that?
It was in Allentown.
In Allentown?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I could tell you how that whole thing went, like how the whole show was produced another time. But like, my crew did all the recreations, and it was cool. So like, and awesome. Then they kick in the door, and the blood splatter, and
dramatization. We
did all that, which was super fun. So as I was doing that, I was taking little gigs, shooting stuff. I was taking little gigs, like I was like writing stuff. I directed some stuff. So I was
now are you just doing video at that point, or are you doing photos?
Yeah, good question. So I'm just doing video.
Okay.
So at some point along the way, I buy a little point and shoot. I have like a little Olympus camera, slide the thing this way and the lens comes out, and had some manual set. It had manual and aperture priority, and had some settings that I learned and used. I took one photography course in college. It was required. So I freelanced for 5 years. The guy who was the head of the TV studio at ESU told me about the internship. And then 5 years later, he calls me to say, hey, my wife, who worked at like Lehigh, she was in the college kind of thing, said, hey, this job opened up at NCC as like a media guy down there. He goes, you should look at it. I go, NCC? He's like, Northampton Communications. It's in Bethlehem. I go, oh, all right. Like, I don't know. So I go online, I see the thing. You know, this is still when internet's like beep boop beep beep. I connected. Yeah, I connected to the internet. You know, I put my AOL disc in, and I got that.
Then somebody picked up the phone and kicked you
I'm
off.
On the phone. Yeah,
I'm on the internet, damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, these kids will never know the struggle, man.
All of that was going on.
Yeah.
So I go to the website. It loaded, and I applied to a job which I had no business getting. Right.
Yeah.
It was like, hey. Do you know how to like do smart room technology and like projectors and all that kind of shit?
Yeah.
And I went into the interview. The guy was like a year or two older than me. He was a young guy, super smart, brilliant guy, Damien. He's like super nerd, right? And he started asking me nerdy questions, and I could answer some of them, like what's the color temperature of like a studio light? Like, okay, 3200 Kelvin. He was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Only thing I knew was that type of stuff. I didn't know shit. I said, Bud, I know signal flow enough to like, I could plug in a projector and like,
yeah.
I said, I've done none of that, right? I wasn't the AV kid in school. I'm not that guy. I'm not like the nerd kid. I said, but at 30 grand or whatever you're offering me here, I said, I can learn the stuff. And he's like, good point. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he was just like, fuck it. I'll take a risk. I go, take a risk on me and we'll see what happens, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. I got the job in 2006. I worked there for 12 years up until very recently, right? Like 3 years ago now I'm at the studio. So while I was there, I was shooting with that point and shoot camera. And I'm in my office the first couple days of work and I'm hanging up pictures of my dog and maybe some fucking flowers or what, just random, like I'm making my office look nice. But I had one wall with 8x10s that I just like tiled. I did like maybe 10 cool like photos there. A woman walks in to introduce herself that works in my department, Lois, and she's like, oh, that's beautiful. I'm taking a photography class. It's actually supposed to be tonight, but the teacher is like missing. I go, what do you mean? She goes, nobody knows, but she's gone missing. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, well.
Did they ever find her?
Yeah, who knows, right? So I'm like, oh, that sounds so tragic. And in the back of my mind, I was like, I'll teach that fucking class.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that. Who's the head of that program? Because I don't know how anything works yet, but I'm guessing it's a non-credit class because this lady's 60 something and just wants to learn how to take pictures of her grandkid. And I'm a couple of steps ahead, so I'm like, I could probably do that. So I call the lady Carolyn, and she's like, yeah, meet me. Well, I'll meet you on the quad, right? I said, cool. I'll be out there in an hour or whatever. I then take all of the photos down off the wall and put them in a little like folder.
So you could show her?
Yeah. And I was like, here's my portfolio. And she was like, cool, yeah, you're hired. She's like, we won't do it tonight because I already told everybody this fucking lady's missing.
Yeah.
But next Monday we'll start back up. You'll do 6 of them. We'll go from there.
Yeah.
So after that, I did that from 2006 till 13. And then when I handed that over in 2013, I had written like a whole new program for them that they run now, which is like
on the photography program. Okay.
Yeah. So I like kind of helped them spruce that whole thing up to be called like the roving photographer certificate. So you can go to NCC now and get some like whatever certificate to say like you took some classes.
I think my wife took that class.
Right. Well, one of them probably. Yeah. Exactly.
So at that time, where you're doing the photography class now, you're teaching that. Are you still doing the AV?
Yeah, so I'm the head of the AV program. So I'm running, like, I'm going to classrooms and, like, making sure shit's plugged in right and working, your DVD, whatever. But what I'm branding myself on at the college is making, like, cool, short, creative films to be like, hey, stop clogging the fucking G drive with all of your, like, bullshit. Like, you're, like, so I'm making, like, awareness videos for different departments around because that didn't exist. And I was like, oh, hey, I heard there's a problem. I'll do that. So I started shifting myself into something totally different and having the part-timers do the like day-to-day break fit stuff, which was cool because I was just like, I'll just do this.
So you're just spending more time creating.
Yeah.
And is that like kind of your introduction into the creative world? So I mean, you're doing it for a little while there, but before you were doing that, did you pick a camera up before that? Like, were you taking photos?
No. So photos themselves, like I took a black and white course in like high school. I loved it, but I couldn't afford any of the shit. So what happened was...
now we're talking film days, right?
Yeah. So I couldn't afford anything now in 2006. Like, I'm, like, still, like, kind of just getting by. But now I got a job, man. They pay me $32,500 a year. I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. Yeah. I'm making money. And I'm still... And I told them right at the start of it, I said, I freelance. And they're like, yeah, there shouldn't be any problem. I was like, cool. Now the college, 22 days of paid vacation to start. Okay, so it's 5 weeks off, and Friday's off all summer, and it's Flag Day. You don't have to go to work. It's it's just like a college. You're always off. It's like working in the government, right? So I was just like, hey, I'm gonna keep freelancing, and they were like, yeah, no problem, cool. So HR knew it to the point where like I shot the head of HR's both of her sons' weddings. Like that's where I started.
Video or photo?
Photo. So that's where I started to get my first kind of gigs.
Yeah.
People were like, oh, I heard you take nice photos. Can you? Now, I started teaching photography classes, and I only owned that point and shoot Olympus. So it got to the point where I'm teaching students who are coming in with, at the time, they'd come in with Sony's, Olympus, Canon, Nikon. Like, they're coming in with 6 different brands of cameras sometimes. It wasn't until years later it started to be like Nikon or Canon was mostly what was happening. It started to whittle it down. So I'm teaching people photography. I'm just staying a week or 2 ahead of them.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to teach you how to use aperture, like what aperture is. I would go shoot a couple of shallow depth of field, far depth of field, show them why and how and whatever. Come back next week. Then I'd go shoot some slow shutter, fast shutter. Next week we do shutter speed. Yeah. And I just kept staying a week ahead.
That week to the next course, you're just like studying up for what the next week is going to be. Yeah.
And I'm teaching for the first time now. So all those
And then
people,
how do you like that? How does that feel?
I loved it. It was so good because like it was interesting to like learn I would try to like make something stick and like I could see them. It wasn't working.
It's bouncing off them,
yeah,
right?
and I'm like, fuck. And then I'd be like, all right, think about it this way. And then I'd just like bloop or like draw something. And then all of a sudden you'd watch them all go boom, 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 like the light bulbs. And I'd be like, cool. So when I teach the class in another few weeks, when it comes back around, I already know how to get right there. So I'm like refining that blade to the point where like a couple of my students became like professional, like a couple went off and became like professional photographers, which was like not the whole point of that course at all. But some of them were like, hey, thanks. I do all the photography for an advertising company in New York now. Yeah. It's like, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Little do you know, like I was just one step ahead of you that whole time.
And that's what it always was. When I was freelancing, same thing. Hey, do you own a teleprompter? Yeah, absolutely. I'm the best teleprompter guy you ever seen. I'm like, fuck. Calling around, like, yo, where do I rent a teleprompter? Like, okay, I priced them at like $400, so like I got to spend $150 to rent one. How do I set it up? Like, I would just stay a step ahead so I could say yes to all of the things. So like a lot of times people would be hiring me as like a grip or a lighting guy or whatever, and only know me as that because their gig comes to town. They're gonna call Pete. He's gonna come, and then it would started to dawn on me like that guy was like he passed me over for like a shooting thing, and he's like, oh, you shoot? And it's like people only knew what box you were in. Yeah. So I kind of put myself in a bunch of different boxes, so I kept being able to say yes and stay working and a couple $100 here and there. But eventually I started to like hone it in more to say like, yeah, I take photos and I do video. Once people knew that, and now I have this thousands of people working at a college, and they're like, can you come shoot my wedding for $500 or $600? I was like, yep. And that's kind of how that started basically then, just like a few $100 gigs and saying yes to them. Yeah.
So you started out with video, and now your bread and butter is obviously photos, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what, 90... 90.
Yeah, I'd say like, what do you say? I'd say like for like this year I did like 2 or 3 like brand videos, and that was pretty good. But then weddings will like be the video seems to be like an add-on almost. Like photos are definite and videos is like maybe. Yeah. So like I'd say 40 to 50% of the clients that come to me for photo will also then add video, or they'll come and say I want photo and video. So it's probably like less than half, but much more of the income is generated through like the photography side of it.
Now when you're doing videos, you're subcontracting videographers to do that?
Yeah, so
because you still have to shoot the photos.
Correct.
Right?
If like you hire me for both, right? If it's like photo and video, then I'm subbing out the video team. They're coming out and working with me. If I get hired as if they already have a photographer and then hear about me and come to me, and I'm not booked, I come out as the lead videographer, and then I just grab one of my subs. Yeah. So like it depends how I'm hired, what role I'll be in.
You just change the hat.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how much do you like shooting video compared to shooting photography? Same wedding.
Yeah.
You had to shoot the photos or you had to shoot the video.
Yeah.
What's your choice? What's your go-to? And you know, like, what are the comfortabilities with that or the discomforts?
Yeah. Good question. So I think like honestly, it's almost easier to shoot the video on the wedding day and have another videographer. So even if somebody's like hires me as one videographer, for the most part, I'm either going to suggest to them later on or right away, I'll be like, if you can swing it, get a second videographer, because that's a fucking grueling day as a solo guy. And I'll let them know, like, I'll do it. It's going to be okay. It'll be a good video. It's not going to be as good as if we have like the comfort of like, you're getting the safe shot and then I can roll and get creative stuff. So I try to educate them on that. But if I go out as like a lead videographer and have a good second, it's going to be like, it's going to be easy, right? Like, just make sure the sound is really good. Yeah. That's like the only thing I'm ever worried about is like, that mic's on, right? Like, is that mic on? Like, you're always just like, is also that mic on? Because like, that's where you're just like, if the sound's gone, you're just like, what is this? What are we watching? Shit now. Yeah. So you need that. But other than that, photos are, it's weird because I'm almost more comfortable with photo then too, because I do so much more of it and I've shot hundreds of thousands of frames this year or whatever. But it's also still more challenging, or I'm holding myself to a higher standard when I am in that role. Yeah. So I'm kind of like, I'm doing this all the time. Like, this is sort of easy now too. So like, what am I missing? Like, what do I need to like zoom back and kind of like take in? Yeah. Like, what are the moments that are really happening, or like, just, it's different. So yeah, I think the video is like, I think the video is a little easier only because you're just like, there's tons of shit to cut to. Yeah. So if this shot is good and then it's not suddenly, cool, I'm out of it. That shot is good. Yeah. Or like, I'll be able to tell the story. Yeah. Whereas like with photos, it's kind of like, don't miss the moment. Yeah. Because if you don't capture it, it's not there. Yeah. On video, it might be there because you're just rolling. Yeah. A lot. So yeah, it's different. I think I hold myself to a higher standard on the photo side for sure, only because I aspire to like keep really cranking away and getting better at that. I expect my video team to always be getting better, but I'm not them all the time. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So like, I can't control that as much. I can just be like,
here's what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's some things to look for. So when you're at a wedding, whether you're doing video or photo, how easy is it to get lost in like tunnel vision to where you forget to take a step back and go, okay, let me take a big picture look here. Yeah. What am I missing? Yeah. What are some things that I'm missing? Like, now it's probably natural for you because you've done so much of it where you're just like, I know that I'm going to need to get these types of shots. Yeah. I know I'm also going to have to be looking out for, these things are getting set up and I might have to get some shots of that. Yeah. But as like somebody starting out, or even more experienced people, how important is it to maybe slow down for a moment, take a step back and go, okay, hold on. Yeah. Because I feel like even sometimes when I'm doing stuff, I'm just so, like, I'm here to grab some video, so let's just grab the video and do it, and I don't take a step back and go, wait, hold up. What the hell is that person doing in the background? Correct. What is this plant looking like it's dead hanging over the side here? Like, so
yes.
How important is it to just stop and take a step back?
So I think slowing down, like, that was the key to what you just said there. Yeah. Like, and I tell that to people when I'm like training them or trying to help them like understand like how to approach any sort of like situation like that, because like our senses are just like taking in everything, but at the same time, when we get that tunnel vision, we might not be tuned into what's going on around us, and we're missing something. So like, there's a speech going on and you think that you need to just be capturing the reactions of the couple. Well, like, you got a couple of their heads thrown back and laugh, you got the wipe of the tear, you got a couple of ranges of okay, cool, you got fucking 30 photos of like all of the emotions, but like, who's right here? Yeah. Like, did you hear that sniffle? That was mom. Like, where's mom? You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's super important to be like hyper aware, and you can only do that when you're like comfortable. And you slow the hell down, and you have to kind of like wait. So one of the things that I've learned over the years is like, I'll be set up in a spot where like my composition's beautiful, the light's beautiful, Like everything is looking great, but I'm just waiting for something to enter the frame, or like something extra or unexpected to kind of happen to like elevate the photo. Because right now it's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's in focus. It's lit right. Maybe I have a good expression, but like the way that the hand is gonna come up, or like a kid's gonna run by in the background and fall, or just some shit is gonna happen, and you have to weigh your options of like, how long do I wait here?
Yeah.
How long do I wait for that moment? And just know, like early on, I would pop. I'm like, this isn't the spot. I'd get up and move, and some shit would happen that I'm like,
Yeah.
if I stayed there for 5 more seconds. But I think as a photographer, you're always like, you are hyper aware, so you're always looking for the next thing. But like the thing could still be like, marinating right there.
Yeah.
So to be able to slow down and know like, it's all good. It's all good. Like, I got this. Something's gonna happen. I got this. And then once you get it, pop, and then you can like move for the other. The other shot. Yeah. So it's important to slow down.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into that, and it's not just pointing and clicking the camera, right?
No.
There's a lot of other stuff that goes on behind the scenes as far as just running a business.
Yeah.
And I think this was something else that, that you've expressed your interest in, is helping other people. Yeah. Like even just this conversation, I'm getting tidbits from it, and I'm just like logging things, you know what I'm saying? And, so I appreciate the little free tutorial here.
Heck
but how much of the business, the behind the scenes stuff drives what the final photo, right? Because the final photo isn't the only thing.
No.
It's hopefully what is going to capture the moment and make the client happy and get you more clientele. But there's more to it, right? You gotta pay rent. You gotta do all this other stuff. So how much if you had to put percentage wise, how much are you always focusing on just keeping the lights on, and then how much are you being able to spend on just like, how do I be more creative?
Good question. So a business like this is the glamorous side of it is like, oh man, you're just like being creative and taking photos. 10% at the most. That's 10. That's like, that's it. That's it.
Minuscule.
That's so small.
I think everybody thinks it's like 99%.
You're just shooting all
That's
the time.
all you're doing.
Here's the deal. If you're
it's
shooting,
just a couple photos.
Yeah. If you're shooting 90% of the time, then you have like, I don't know, like somebody else is handling the business maybe. And like, that's, I think ultimately like the difference between like, you see a lot of people like making it be this glamorous that like I should have a flat brimmed hat and tell you I'm a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, all that bullshit, right? It's like, no, I'm a guy who works in my business. Like I work for a business called Mackey Photo. Yeah. I created a business to put myself into, and then I was like, oh fuck.
Now I got to keep it running.
I work for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like,
somebody just said to me, not to cut you off. Somebody said that if you are. Can you go on vacation for 3 weeks? Did you just say this to me?
No, but it's
somebody
but that's what it is.
It sounds like something you would say.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you go on vacation for 3 weeks and your business keep running?
Right. Then it's like, if the answer is no, then you don't
own a business.
You work for your business.
You work.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I work for my business.
Yeah.
Right? Because I've done things to try to like automate and keep things like to systematize things, and I'm always getting better at that. My goal last year was to do a lot more of that, and I did. Yeah. So like if somebody inquires and then this, and then there's a system that sort of like you can keep track of, but it's still just me until I pull in another chunk of change that I can say, hey Mike, come you run this stuff now. Yeah. Right? Like then you're so it's not super glamorous. It's a labor of love, but it's different than you're working for your business. Yeah. You're not building a business that you can just step away from and it just runs on its own.
Yeah. So until you get to the point, if you even want to get to the point where you could have an office person, then you're just worrying about shooting video or shooting photos, editing the photos. And then you get to the point where you don't even have to edit them anymore because you have a really good editor that knows your vision, and now you're just you're just getting the clients and you're shooting the...
So that's what I just did this year. So like I'm still editing a few of the photos. Like you saw like some of the photos I showed you. I'm dealing with those. But for like a bulk thing, like 1,000 photo wedding, those I have an editor now. Yeah. Those all go to my editor. They come back to me in like 5 to 7 days. I can have you back in the studio. We can do your album and stuff. Like so that system alone, like the fact that does cost a few $100 every time that goes out to somebody else. That's fine because the client experience it gives you is that much better. Yeah. And then also you're back in and now you're like, okay, cool. Like good, thank you, great service, great job, also beautiful album,
Yeah.
let's do this, is a little better than, you know, having it be, you know, you hear nightmare stories where somebody's like, I get emails from people that are like, hey, I'm just like this person, but should it take me a year to get my wedding video?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, what?
No.
Yeah.
It should not take that
And
long.
I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry to hear you're dealing with that,
Yeah.
but look at your contract, maybe.
Yeah,
but
maybe. Yeah.
not here. No.
Typically, no.
Yeah, I was like, that's
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, a few months, but they should be communicating that.
Yeah.
But not even that. You know what I mean? Like,
So I think if people would hear like, all right, I'm subcontracting out my editing,
Yeah.
right? That people would say, or they would automatically think, and maybe I'm thinking about this wrong, that, well, he's not editing the photos that he shot for me, so therefore he's not taking as much care.
Yeah.
But I think what people don't realize is you get to take more time being personable with a client and actually connecting with them and
For sure.
figuring out what they want,
yeah.
right?
The thing is, too, like, the tasks that you do, like working in your business, they keep you from working on the tasks that are working, like, on your business, right?
Yeah.
Like, so when you're too zoomed in all the time, it's like, that's just one task. If you're
Yeah.
running a photo business, like, and you're being a photographer, it's good to have a great team around you. So, like, for me, I work with a company now, and it's a photographer I know and a friend of mine, but like his whole philosophy on the editing is basically like, we are you as an editor on your best day, because some days you're killing it with the edits, and some days you're just like, fucking eyes aren't in focus, right? And you're just like working through it, and you're like, man, are these looking all right? Whereas the consistency that they can provide is more consistent than me. That's their whole, when their business is literally built around creating that experience for me as the photographer, they're better than what I can do. And they're faster.
And that consistency builds the
Trust.
trust, right? Not just between you and them, but the trust
client.
between the client and you.
Yeah, they see your work and they're like, oh, cool. I loved what you did at Kristen and John's wedding.
Yep.
Like, and this what, like, everything you show. And that's what I tell when I send full galleries or when they come in and flip through an album. I'm like, I might share a photo a week. I don't, I'm just like not, I suck at doing that. But like, look through a bulk of my work and find something you don't like. Yeah. That's what you should be doing with everybody. Like, go for consistency. Cool, here's one photo, you loved it. Yeah, I shared one great photo. Yeah. But I delivered 700 and there's 150 in this album. So here's a full gallery, then here's an album. See how it gets whittled down, you know?
Yeah, look, if I'm going to buy something off Amazon, I'm looking at the reviews. I'm looking for the shitty reviews. Yeah. Because those are typically the most honest reviews, right?
Exactly.
You get 30 of these. Oh, just as ordered, you know.
Best thing ever.
Best as described. Or just as described. Works great. Works for me. Yep. But, you know, that one person who had the shitty experience, they're going in the detail. Like, oh, the hinge was messed up. The thing broke off. The first day I had it.
The threads are all coming apart.
Yeah. So you're like, maybe I won't get into this. Yeah. So, yeah, in that regard, I like that point of view, right? You go into it looking at what's the shittiest work that you're going to find of mine. Yeah. And that's probably better than the best work of somebody else.
Yeah, and I think that's like the thing is like I tell people like they'll be like, for instance, like every couple says they're going to be the most awkward. Right? Yeah. To the point where I joke with them, I'm like, one of these days I'm going to run a contest where it's going to be like, who's the most awkward? Because everyone's hand goes up. I go, look through my portfolio and find the awkward person. Yeah. And then they're like, oh. I was like, right, every one of those people who you're like, damn, they look good. I'm like, they all were like, we don't know what the fuck to do. Yeah. I was like, right.
So that day that I went with you and I held the light for you, right? Yeah. They were like, oh, are you sure? Like, I don't know. This seems weird just staring up at them. Like, trust me, this is going to look great, you know? And they freaking came out awesome. Yeah. And they loved it.
And they loved them. Yeah. Actually, one of them's right there, right? On the wall. That's that silhouette.
Oh, is that the one?
That's them, yeah.
Is that... Now, do you have is that the one with the bench? The bench is in the
Yeah, that's the same setup, and they're over here, too.
Yeah. So I'm going to show that photo as we're talking about it. Yeah. That photo, so I was there when you captured it. Yeah. I understood the framing of it or whatever. It wasn't until I saw the edit where I realized the benches.
Yeah. They help tell the story.
They help tell the story. Yeah. And I didn't realize it's sitting there, but on the far end, there was an old couple sitting on the bench. And on the closer end, there was a young couple. Mm-hmm. And it was literally them just walking from like young to old.
They're right in the middle.
It was fucking awesome.
So that's like...
That like blew me away right there.
So that's the thing. Like that's what goes back to like you're shooting and then you're waiting for like the unexpected to kind of happen. Yeah. Because in some of those frames that I was shooting that, I saw where those people were and I kept them in the frame. And I said in one of them, and I shot a couple of them where they weren't in the frame, but when I zoomed back and got them in, and I was like, I can either clone them out later or whatever if I have to. I was like, but I'm just seeing what they're doing. Because in some of those frames, since they're silhouettes, the people would lean forward and like become one blob, and like you couldn't really. And then these guys over here were doing something, and it just wasn't lining up. And I was shooting, and I was like, "There's going to be something there." So when I went in to call, and I took like 15 frames of that one thing where I just had them walk, I found the one where like the perfect leaning here. These guys were, and I was like, "Yeah, they're there," because you could make out that like that's an older guy
you could
like
see it. The guy with the cane,
and like you could tell they're young just because of like their body expressions.
So like when I first saw it, I was like, well, I know because I was there. I knew there was an old couple there. I knew there was a young couple here. But then when I was later looking at it again, I'm like, no, anybody can see that. You know what I'm saying? If they're really looking at the picture. And I think most people will look at, even them, I bet you they looked at that picture and they were like, that is such a dope looking picture. Yeah. And I bet you they look at it again and they go,
context.
Whoa. Like there's this weird timeline thing going on. I didn't realize I was in this freaking picture.
Yeah, and then they're right in the middle, and they're like walking from. They were that young couple. Yeah. Now they're engaged. They're getting married, and they're going to be sitting on the bench as an old fucking couple down here. Yeah. So like those are awesome. Those are like the unexpected things that, and maybe that's appreciated by some people, and maybe some people don't connect with that at all and see right past it. But for me, I was like, fuck, you know. And even when I posted it. You know, I think I just said like walking the timeline, you know what I mean? Because they're like on this perfectly straight path, and it was just right in between. Yeah. I don't even know how we got there, but that's. I
don't know. We were standing in the high weeds or the tiger lilies or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
Go up there.
But I mean, I knew I wanted them up there, but I'm saying how we got there here, like what we were just. I think we started with business. We were talking about like the 90% of the. Yeah.
I don't know how we got here, but
it's good.
So if it is 90% business, 10% actual creative and shooting, you in that picture were able to capture that 10%, right?
Yeah.
So where people think that's all you're doing 100% of the time.
And that's what you have to, when you go into like shooting mode, that's what you have to do. You got your tricks that you know will work, right? It's like, I know like these are, it's like, fuck, I'm always going to be putting them like to the left third of the frame. So today, let me try to get them over to the right. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to fall into my normal, comfortable tricks, and then they're going to love them. Yeah. And the consistency is there, and it works. It's then our job to be like, okay, fucking like, all right, what am I not doing? Like, let's change it up. And like, let's get back farther. Let's get down low. Let's get up high. Let's mix it all up. So at the end of the day, you've delivered great options to the couple, but then you can go through and pick out and be like, that one plugs right into my portfolio. Like that's the one that I don't have. That's missing. Like and you drop that in, you can like kick one out or something. You know,
because for the couple, they're gonna look at the photos and be like, oh, these are amazing. Yeah. But when you look at your catalog of photos for the year, you're gonna go, yeah, these are all good photos, but they're all the same.
That looks the same as that one.
The framing is the same.
Right?
Yeah,
it's different people. They're slightly in a different pose, but it's like the size of their heads in the frame and where they're located. You're like, that's similar to that. Like you start to see it more, and you know what traps you're falling into. And then I think it's important to, when you're in that 10% and you're shooting, like let's go for it, because when you zoom back later and look at it on your computer and you're like, their hand is doing something weird, or you like, that's what early on I would miss the small details because you're just so wrapped up in what you're doing that, again, slow down. And be like, cool, I got it. They're here. Let me scan the frame. Is there something growing out of the side of his head? Is her hand all cramped up? Like, that's when you can slow down and be like, hey, Melissa, can you just relax? Yeah, just relax it. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, good. Those are the things you're trying to refine as you're in that creative process, you know?
But starting out, you're just so goddamn nervous that you can't even fucking think of that, right?
Yeah, you're just like, let's shoot this and then I'll get out of here. Yeah. And I'll clean it up in post. And then you look and you're like,
I didn't have the flash on that whole time.
You're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, what the hell is going on here? Yeah, it's interesting to be able to work with you that day and just to kind of see. And it was really helpful. Like, I don't know if you felt it was weird. I don't think you felt it was weird because you're probably used to doing it. But like, you're doing the shots and you're kind of calling out your settings. You're like, all right, now I'm gonna bump my eye. So like, just so I can kind of understand, like. All right, and that was like super duper helpful. Cool. You know, now it's just one of those things like you got to constantly put it into practice. Yeah. Like that one day alone will never be enough for me to just be like, well, I'll know what to do now. You know what I'm saying? It's just, now you got to put it into practice and just experiment. Right?
Correct. And that's cool because it was funny. I was out on a shoot the other day, and the guy who came to assist, he's trying to learn stuff too. So the same deal. I was like just talking the lingo, which it kind of like can detract from the client experience, or if they understand what you're doing and they're like into the fact that like you're helping this other person, they kind of joke. She goes, "I know exactly what you're talking about." And I go, right. I said, Adam's like learning what, and she goes, "No, I love it. It's great." And so it's cool to be able to like combine those worlds, to be like, hey, we're having fun here, and this is great, and I'm making great portraits of you, but like this guy's learning too. It sort of like, it didn't detract from the client experience. It made them sort of be like they were in on some of the learning too. They're like, oh, it's cool that we can be helpful. It was sweet.
And it's kind of cool because when you kind of understand it a little bit, I think even for the client just being there, being photographed, they're just like, oh wow, there's more to this.
There's shit going on.
Yeah, there's shit.
There's like there's numbers and equations. Yeah. Like the Matrix is like.
Yeah. Like when I take the picture, it's just click the button and then hopefully it's focused, right?
They have no idea.
What's
going into it. So yeah, I think that day too, they were like, wow, like they were just like, they're very like, wow, they're like they love the experience of it all the way through. As a couple, they loved it. So. Yeah, it was cool that they were like, oh, neat. Like, you got this assistant. He's learning. We're making great photos, you know? It was cool.
Yeah, it was a cool experience, man. I really enjoyed that day. I had a lot of fun.
It was sweet.
And, like, I felt like there was a connection between you and the people you were photographing. And then even me with them also. Because then I'm throwing little ideas out there. And they're like, you know, I'm like, wow, this is fun. This is why I picked the camera back up. Exactly. This is why I wanted to start getting into it. Just because when you come up, when you see something in your head and then you're able to actually materialize that in your medium, then it's nice. You know what I'm saying? Like you feel accomplished. You feel like I did it.
Well, we walked down that hill into that like little shitty area with like the highway going right by, and I was like, what are we doing down here? I was like, you'll see, because like if you look at it from the perspective of it was these tall, beautiful lilies, it's like if I can get up a little higher and look down, the whole frame just becomes them in this like field of flowers. We don't know. We don't know that literally it's going by.
People are honking and
I joke lots of times with my couples. I'll be like, "You see that dumpster over there?" And they're like, "Huh?" I'm like, and they're like, you don't know how many times I've shot like so close to like a terrible stinky dumpster. But it's like the lighting over there is, and it's just like I'll joke with them and be like, "We're going to the dumpster." I was like, I always shoot next to the dumpster. But that's what it's all about. It's all about them being like, what, how are you? And it's like,
how are these pictures going to look?
And it's like what you try to explain to other people is like, it's important to like simplify your frames and like just get rid of distractions. So if there's like a clean background, if there's something that's like drawing you in over there that can like really simplify it, then like use it. Maybe the side of the dumpster has this crazy reflection coming off of it, or like some texture to it, or just as an example, it's like make it work. What if the challenge was like you have to shoot everything you shoot has to be within 10 feet around this dumpster. Go. It's like, okay, let's make some fucking portraits happen. Get down low, get up high looking
Stand
down
on the dumpster.
Exactly. Use it in the foreground, and so
look through the little opening where the fork goes through to pick it up.
So little challenges like that are really cool. That's why when like you show up to a place and they're like, oh, it's beautiful. We have hundreds of acres and we have all this stuff, whatever. And you're like, I'm going to spend all my time fucking walking from point A to point B. They're like, oh, take them over to, you're going to get on the golf cart and take them to hole 9 for 10 minutes, go up there. And it's like, what?
Like, why? Hole 1's right here. We can make it happen here.
Like we can literally do it all. Like, okay, where does the light not suck? Okay, cool. Like, light looks great over here. Let's do it here. Light looks like shit everywhere. Then I don't care where it is. I'll make a good light. Now, what's the composition look like?
What's better, a bright sunny day or a cloudy day? Partially cloudy.
Yeah. So, good question. Cloudy, super easy, right? Because it's more flat, big softbox. But you still have to like look for that direction of light, because I think what a lot of people mess up on cloudy days is like the sun is still in a position in the sky and it is still a little brighter in one spot than the other. So like if you don't want raccoon eyes, because you could still get that, you still might want to fill them in a little bit, or you might want to put the sun to their back and overexpose. Like there's things that you want to try to do. Sunny days are way more challenging. But like if you can use some of that hard light sometimes, like it can be really fucking cool too. So it depends how I'm feeling. If I go out sometimes on a cloudy day, I'm like, cool. It's easy today. I'll probably bring some light to like spice it up and give some dimension to it, so it's not so flat. But I'm like, all right, it's not going to be a problem. But if somebody's like, I can only shoot at noon tomorrow, and I'm like, it's the fucking worst light ever. I'm like, cool, let's go. And then the first thing I'm doing is like looking for like, where is it coming through trees, or like where can it get broken up and look interesting that I could put you in like a little pocket of it. Because the day we shot together was pretty open sun.
Yeah, it was.
Right?
It was
so
real
it was like,
bright until the end of the day.
Yeah, so the first thing we did was I was like, let's go in the woods.
Yeah.
Let's
we walked through the woods for quite a while.
Yeah, it's like let's just see what goes on in these trees.
Yeah, I gotta tell. She was like, "Where are we going?"
Yeah,
like we're just gonna walk a little bit further. Just want to see if there's something interesting back here. You know?
Yeah.
It's just like, okay.
And then we would find, and like if you remember, since the way the sun would come through, if she's standing here, all of a sudden I'm like, stand there, close your eyes, so I can just see it, and the sun would just like, hit her and fall off everywhere else. It was like, cool, that looks great. By the time she's in the spot, okay, it went behind the clouds. Are we? Yeah, we're gonna clear in like another minute. Cool, stay in position.
Yeah.
Okay, sun comes out, blasts them. The background goes real nice and dark. Pop, 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 pop. Let's move on.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like in that situation, you're just using the hard light like you would if you were holding up a big. Because we could have done the same thing. I could have been like, Mike, run over there with the flash, make the gridded flash be that light.
Yeah.
But when it's natural like that, just exploit the shit out of it. Big sun star behind them, like the silhouette stuff, clouds. So you'll get more interesting stuff typically on like a bright sunny day, and it's going to be more challenging.
Yeah. I mean, you're doing tons of weddings. You're doing what else? What other types of photos are you doing? Because it's not just wedding photography, right?
Right.
I mean, that is probably your bread and butter. Right?
Yeah. So
like
weddings are the bulk, right? Like weddings are the consistent thing that I can say, like, okay, I'm gonna have 25, 30, or whatever that is. Like, I'm gonna have a consistent number of weddings that'll like keep the lights on, keep food on the table. Like, we're good to go. I have to maintain that. I have to always worry and be like, every year I'm like, did I book enough yet? Like, when do I book all of my weddings? You know, it's like I'm like, should I have more for 2022 right now? I do all of that, and then eventually I just go like, oh, I'm good now. Yeah. At some point. So I kind of always have that in the back of my mind, like, it'll be okay. But that's the one thing that I'm like, all right, we'll keep surviving with these. But like, people call me for like the things that I don't really like, that I don't really promote at all or say that I even do is like family photography, maternity shoots, engagement shoots come kind of along with the weddings, but those sometimes come in as their own thing. Just straight up like kids. I've had people come in here for their communion photo or something. They're fucking doing one of these or whatever. That kind of a thing. So like, I take on a lot of stuff that I don't actively show. Because the thought I think there is like, what you show is what you'll get. So if I like show like, oh, here's a couple getting married, like that's a higher ticket item right now in my pricing structure. So like it's more beneficial to be like, here's some people getting married, and then people are like, oh, call Mackey, he does a great job at weddings. Boom. Whereas if you are too broadly kind of like known, I think it can get a little bit dangerous where like you like start to water one of the brands down a little bit. I think anyway. So
what are some types of things that you want to do though that you haven't done yet, or you haven't done a lot of? Yeah.
So good question. So what this is like fresh. This is inside baseball right now. This is like the next thing that we're doing. But this is going to be like the premier portrait like studio. There's nothing in this area right now where you can come in and get like a full service like kick-ass portrait session in an indoor studio environment. It just doesn't exist. I don't think it exists. I've looked, but I also do stay sort of in my own bubble and just sort of put my head down and work. But that's what's going to happen next. The next thing will be like, you're going to start to see some like really high end portraits coming out of the studio, like some faces where you're going to be like, shit, that looked good. So like headshots, lifestyle, contemporary glamour, some fashion type of stuff. But you're going to start seeing some stuff coming out of here that's like been in my head or things that I'm going to like, you know, literally like from a drawing on a piece of paper to like to finished, you know, like the conception of that. You're going to start seeing some of that. Where that goes, I'm not 100% sure, but it will definitely go in a direction of like you're coming to get like physical, tangible pieces of artwork that will be like in your home and will be like really legacy items. Like, I mean, if like your mom would come in for a portrait, it's going to be the portrait that like in 30 years you're going to fucking be looking at and be like, God damn, like that
she
was
looking like the first lady of the
right.
Yeah,
like that was the shit.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
and the experience that she had in getting that portrait was like she's still talking about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
it was a good time.
That's what's going to happen here. And that's what I'm like really excited about.
Yeah. So you like shooting with people then?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know a lot of photographers. Well, I should not say it that way.
Yeah.
I know that there are a lot of photographers who will avoid shooting with people. I mean, even me sometimes. Like if I know I have to film a video which includes an act or some sort of subject,
a human.
it is a lot more nerve-wracking because
sure.
now I have to interact with this person. I don't know if they're going to perform.
Right.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to give them the direction or the comfort that is needed for them to be able to deliver what I'm looking for.
Or the quality.
At
At the end, you send the thing off and you're like, hey, what do you think? And then you're like, the nervous artist, you're like, like every time I send a gallery, I literally am like, so anyway, here's the fucking photos, and then I'm just like, they're these are the worst.
Yeah.
I'm like, I should quit.
They're gonna fucking hate them.
They hate them.
Yeah.
They hate me.
Yeah.
I was like, I might as well just start returning their money to them right now.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And then they're like, oh my god, and then they take 3 days because life is happening.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
And
they're
you're
like,
freaking
and
out.
I'm like,
Yeah.
and I'm sending them like fucking gifts that are like worried and shit, and I'm like, you know. And then they write back like, oh my god, no, I'm so sorry. Holy shit, we love them. You're amazing. The fucking review's already online. Like, oh my god. And I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, I was like, I thought you hated me. I thought I hate, you know. And they're just like laughing. And I'm like, that's, I think, part of, you're putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
You're putting yourself out there to be judged and to be critiqued. And that's fine. It's all part of it. And it's so subjective too. That like you can look at something that I shot and be like, that was cool. And you could look at something I shot and be like, maybe he likes that. I don't like it. I don't care about that one. That one was cool, but maybe not. So there's that, and I think to just accept that is like, it's hard and it's part of it.
Yeah.
Right?
And then also like you'll look at something and be like, that's not great.
Yeah.
But then the client will be like, that's my favorite picture.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Or another photographer will see it, right? Like somebody else will see it and be like, fuck, like what? Love that. What'd you do with that lighting? Or, you know, like how, and you're like, yeah, thanks. Like, I like that. But you know, the couple of little things that are bugging the shit out of you about it that you don't love. Yeah. And hopefully as the artist, like hopefully the next time you have that opportunity, you tweak those little 2 things that bothered you. And then like, now it's closer. And then you find 2 other things. You're like, fuck, I should. Cause you're always working towards something else. So yeah, I think the things that I love about photography really vary because I love like authentic moments and just capturing like shit that you could never set up. Yeah. That's why like when some people, I know other photographers that are like, I'm moving out of like big weddings or like I don't like weddings. They're too unpredictable. I'm like, oh, that's what I thrive in.
Yeah.
Like I thrive in just like the shit is burning down. Something's going on over here because
that's real. It's
telling the story. Yeah. Now I've got people reacting to just crazy shit going on or like funny stuff is happening. People are crying and laughing. That's not happening just in a situation that you set up.
Yeah.
Like when you're like, hey, come over here and stand over here and like I'll get everything.
Happy.
Yeah, and I'll get everything perfect. And then it's like, okay, cool, you got it all looking right and you got it now like how do you elevate that? How do you evoke something more out of that? So that takes more, like you're saying, like interacting with people. That takes more. Like you got to massage that a little more than if you can just be like, I'm here to just document the shit that's going to go down.
Yeah.
I'll make it look good.
Whatever that is.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So like that thing is easier than the thing I'm moving towards is a little bit more, it's a little more challenging for me, for sure. And,
because you're going to have a little more control over what the situation is. Right?
Yeah, and when I take them for like portraits like we have here, like when I do that during the wedding day, that's where I'm doing a little bit of what I'm already doing here.
Yeah.
And what I'm mostly sharing on social media and like on my website and stuff are more of those controlled environments a little bit, just because I feel like the quality that I put into that type of imagery makes me stand out a little bit from somebody who's just like, here's this shot of whatever. Like I want when people inquire, and what has happened over the years is they have said like, I liked, and they'll reference a photo, or they'll reference like, I like that there's something with your lighting, or there's something artistic going on. When they start using those types of words, I'm like, cool.
Okay. Yeah,
These people are like probably gonna book. These are the ones who get it, and the ones that I connect with. So hopefully those are the same types of people who, when they start seeing portraits, like studio portraits, they'll have my stamp on it too. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I've gotta keep refining it until when I throw them out there and launch it, like people are like, all right, I see what's going on. I see why this is different, or this is valuable.
Yeah, and
You know?
this is why this is the person I should be going to for this.
Yeah,
right?
because you can go somewhere else and get something totally different, and that's what's so cool about this thing, right? Is like being like, call Mike because he's doing this, call Pete because he's doing this, call Preston because he does this style.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like even if two people could have the same exact equipment, but they're not the same person, right?
No.
So they have different creativities, different visions, different ideas of what might look cool.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get two completely different products.
And that's I think a lot what I talk about when I'm like coaching somebody else, and I try to like, when I'm like, what do you do? Cool. Why do you do it? What are you into that's outside of photography? Like what are your kind of like core values, or like who are you?
Yeah.
Because that is the thing that then people buy from. Like people buy the story, and they buy like, of course, the imagery or the product, right? But then they also click they're like about this guy. What's this guy all about?
Yeah.
Like what's he up to? And then they're like, I'm like, if you're going for like the bohemian fucking chick with the hat and a field full of wheat, being like, hey y'all, and being like that, like, cool. I'm not that. So go do that thing.
Yeah.
And it'll be a totally different vibe. You know what I mean? There'll be so much like, oh girl, and like, oh, like let's sit down for a latte. No, I'll sit down for a latte with you too.
Yeah, because we're basic bitches.
Let's do that.
Let's
you
do
know
that.
what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm all about that. But I'll probably be doing like less y'alls, and I'll like look less pretty and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So everybody has like their own brand, but what people have to understand is it's them. So like how much of yourself you can put into it will attract those types of people. So my friend Preston, when I was chatting with him, he's like a nerd. He's like loves all the nerdiest stuff, right? So he's like Star Wars and Dungeons and Dragons and cosplay and all that. I'm like, I was like, make your website be talking to the nerds and stuff.
Yeah.
Have your packages be like the Jedi pack, the Muggle pack, the what, like, and that's what he did. And dude, people are flocking to, like, oh my god, I love your profile picture with like the Stormtrooper helmet. And just like, you know, when his automatic email response comes to you and it's literally written from a robot. You know what I mean? I'm like, let's lean all the way into this thing. And people are like, oh my god, I love it. You know
and
what I mean?
like this kind of brings it full circle, the conversation back to where we're talking about elevating each other instead of trying to hold each other back and thinking that if you're successful, I won't be successful.
Right.
You know, like you were able to not, you didn't have to convince him probably, but you like gave him the idea like, hey, just capitalize on who you are. You know, and that's going to be great for you. That's not taking anything away from me at all, you know?
And also him being so complimentary, being like, oh, if I can just be where you're at. I'm like, you can, as far, but like success and happiness and all that stuff is your own thing to deal with. Even if like we're making millions of dollars suddenly, like if you're not personally happy or like healthy or just in a good place, like read any article you want about these fucking Hollywood guys who are like, you know what I mean? That $20 million just brought a lot of bullshit with it too. So like, be yourself and be happy, because really, like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah.
You're trying to like provide for your family. Let's go on fucking vacation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's like not have horrific diseases. Let's like all be like healthy and happy.
Yeah.
And like, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's not be exhausted because we're working so much and spinning our wheels. Like, we all have the same basic needs, right? So yeah, to kind of like lean into what your strengths are. And then if there are weaknesses within your business or kind of pieces that you need to bolt on, then don't feel bad about having to like outsource or ask for help in those areas, because we're taught in this country, especially, right, that industrial kind of education model, like, be good at everything. It's like, oh, you suck at math, but you're good at English, like, get your fucking math grade up. It's like, how about I have somebody on my team who does really good math, and I just keep plowing ahead with this English thing that I'm good at, and maybe I become the fucking next whatever, right?
It's like you gotta be great at everything.
Yeah.
And no, you don't. And that's kind of like part of my problem was where I was writing music, I was recording music, I was editing the music, I was
Right.
making artwork, I was booking shows,
Yeah.
I was doing this, you know. Now I'm doing videos, I'm doing the editing, I'm doing the lighting, I'm doing the sound, I'm doing this. And then if you try to be a master at everything, you become mediocre.
Correct.
And
So
not a master at anything.
one of
right?
our first conversations we had, you told me that you really loved editing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I said to you, which hopefully was like eye-opening and didn't detract you from it, because there's a lot I don't know. You can go make a shitload of money as an editor and just go edit, right? And go be a full-time editor. Editing for yourself, you could be a freelance editor or whatever. But what I said was, I remember saying to you, I was like, I can outsource like a full edit for like $60.
Yeah, which is crazy.
You know what I mean? And I was like, and it will be
crazy.
a better edit than like anything I've ever seen. Like, it'll be so good and so fast and whatever. So that's what I said to you. I go, so don't be afraid to like slap your thing together, like get your thing together and like send it to somebody to edit, because maybe you're making money by booking the deal, like getting the project.
Yeah.
And then, like, again, if you need somebody who has your gear isn't up to speed right now, maybe you have somebody who is up to speed. Get them in.
Yeah.
Get 'em. But once you have a product that you can show and say, like, I can do this quality, somebody will book you. The next one, hopefully, it's this quality, and you kind of keep moving in that direction.
Yeah.
But if you're spending all your time, if like that video then is going to take you 70 hours to edit,
It's not worth it.
it's like, bro,
You're not making
what
money.
did you just get paid?
Yeah, what'd you do?
Like, do the math now, and it's like, oh, I got $4 an hour,
Yeah.
and my kid's in the other room. Daddy, play with me, and you're like, in a minute.
Yeah, for
and your
$4
wife,
an hour.
and your wife's
Yeah.
like, what the fuck is this
Yeah.
guy doing? You know, but to outsource that for $60, for $200, for $400, and to be like, that's being edited, and I fucking played with my kid all day.
Yeah.
Is like,
That's worth so much more.
yeah,
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if we're doing all of this and losing touch with our families and missing our kids growing up, then what's the point, right?
Yeah.
Especially you're in the business of capturing moments,
Correct.
and you're missing all your own moments,
Correct.
right? So that's not what the objective is. The objective is to, one, be able to live comfortably, right?
Yes.
I don't think either of us are
No.
in the game to be millionaires.
no.
I will welcome millions.
Let's go.
I
Yes,
will welcome
I am.
them.
I am. Yeah,
And
yeah,
I will love it,
Let's
right?
put it out there right now.
But that's
We
not
want-
the end of it.
Yeah, we want the millions. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll take the millions.
Yeah.
So if you're given the millions, we'll take the
Yeah,
millions.
yeah. Because you got to put that out in the universe and be like, no, I do want the millions.
I want the millions, but that's not the only thing I want. I
No.
want the millions so that way I could have the moments with my son growing up. I could have the moments with my wife.
Yeah.
You know, raising this little guy up.
Yeah.
And
Because what do you really like? What are we really exchanging our time for? That's like the thing that you always have to like be mindful of, right? Because like you have a certain amount of resources, right? You have a certain amount of like money and attention and time and all of these things, and you're constantly trading. You're trading them like for each other, right? So like your time is so freaking valuable that you have to make sure that the things that are taking your time and taking your focus are worth it, right? So like, is it worth it for like a monetary exchange? Well then like, okay, listen, what was it? The other day I went out and I helped somebody on a shoot, and it was like, you know, just for a couple hours or whatever. And it was like, okay, it's $500. And then on the way home, I'm gonna buy it was like $128 at the grocery store in like New Year's Eve snacks and bullshit, right? Like I'm like gonna make it real nice. And that I like explained that exchange to the kids when I got home. I was like, listen, I went and made a quick $500, and I was like, we bought $100 worth of stuff so you could like chill, and $400 just goes away into like savings. I'm like, that for me, that was worth it. I took some time from my family that day, but I was back by like 5 o'clock or whatever. And then like, here's all sorts of good stuff. And that good stuff came from the fact that I just went away for a little bit.
Yeah.
But like the excitement building when I called Brenda to be like, hey, I'm stopping and getting like shrimp and like all sort like I was like, stop making dinner. I told her she was going to be I was like, put it all away, stop cooking, relax. I'm coming home with all the shit. We're just going to eat we're going to like make a charcuterie plates and snacks and shit like that. Yeah. So like, that's the way I look at those trades, right? Is like, you're going to go out. Like one time I went out and did a shoot. Same deal, right? Like if they were paying $500-600, did the shoot, blah, blah, blah. On the way home, I was like, oh, we're going to cook up some good steaks tonight. I'm like, my fucking grill is done. It's falling apart. Yeah. Stopped and bought a Weber, like a beautiful, like $500 like grill. My last one was $200. It lasted 8 years, left out in the snow and rain all year. And I was like, oh, that one held up. The Weber will hold up even better. Came home. Brenda's like, Jesus, what the hell? You know what I mean? Yeah. Isn't that a nice? I was like, yeah. I was like, I went and made $500. It's a $500 grill. Let's go.
So is the amount of time you're taking away from the things you love, and for us, our families, is it enough? Is it worth it? That's really the balance that has to be made.
Yeah, you're always weighing those things out because ultimately, like that's. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what you should keep your focus on is like experiences and that kind of stuff. Even leaving today, I was like, Silas came over. Madeline was still sleeping. Brenda was still sleeping. Silas was up. He was giving me like hugs and we were like hanging out. And I was like just backing him off of me a little bit. I was like, look at me. Let me see you. And I was like, I was just like, man, I love you. And he's like, okay, all right. I'm like, let me see your face. Like, look at me in my eyes, And he's like, all right. We did that. And I was like, I said, you're 7 right now, man. I was like, you won't be 7 like tomorrow. Like you'll be 7 plus 1 day, whatever. I'm like,
you're going to be a little different.
Yeah. I was like, I just want to like take this in for a second. I'm heading out the door.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
Because like when you were your son, and you're looking at your dad, and maybe your dad was doing the same things, or maybe he wasn't. You know, my father was very loving in that regard. Also, it's just like you don't understand it, right? And now, I look at the little guy. He's 6. Yeah. And it's just like I do the same thing. Yeah. I'm like, hold on, man, just look at me for a second. Yeah. What? I'm like, I just want to look at your whole face for a second.
Let me take you in as
smell your head.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing.
This is 6. The next time I fucking blink, you're 7. The next time I blink, I'm like doing a speech at your fucking wedding.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So it's like the awareness of that, I think, is what we should be like focused on and trying to be as present as we can when we know that like the things that we're doing pull us away from being present with our own families. Yeah. And when we're doing the other things we're doing too, like we were talking about before, like slowing down in those moments and being present in those moments helps you to create better art and better memories for the people you're creating for. So like when I go into those situations, man, sometimes I'm getting choked up as I'm shooting stuff. And sometimes I'm like, if I see myself in a second shooter's camera, a lot of times I'm smiling or I'm laughing at what's going on. And that's when I know like I'm doing it right. Yeah. Like I'm like, oh, I'm totally absorbed in the moment. Yeah. And when you tune in to whatever that frequency is, that's when you notice when you're shooting and you're like, we got a sniffler on the fucking left. And you realize that fucking person's 30 feet away. Like, how are you tuning in?
Yeah, how the hell did you hear that?
Yeah, and you're just like, pop, 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 pop.
You're just on that frequency with them in the moment. So whatever emotions come out of it, you're riding those emotions also. And I think that's probably what makes you so good at what you do. And maybe you don't feel like you're as good as I'm telling you. I feel like
that's probably how it is.
But I think that's probably what it. Like, you're good with the camera. You're good. What I've noticed in just a little bit of time spending with you, like on shoot, is like you're really good at picking out what the final thing is going to look like, even though you can't see it yet. You know what I'm saying? Like you're good at that. But I think what is really making the connection is that you're riding that same frequency as they are. So when you're at a wedding and you're getting choked up because the
Yeah.
the father of the bride is
Yeah.
giving a speech and it's
Yep.
really sentimental and
Yeah.
and they see you getting a little choked up,
They
that
know.
connection is there.
They know it's real. So that's 100% like what kind of all lined up when I got into this was like I was already the reason people were telling to go back to the beginning. The reason people are like go be a teacher is because what they were picking up on is the fact that like I had like interpersonal skills that were probably baked into my personality somehow that were like okay, your default settings are like you're going to be okay with people, right? So like go teach because you got to deal with fucking 30 people at a time, right? That's what helped me kind of move up my way at the college. When I left there, I was the assistant director of all of IT, and then I was the director of the Monroe campus. Like, interpersonal stuff is what moved me up. I didn't know how a fucking network worked, any of that stuff. But I was, like at some points, like talking to the network guy about what we needed to be doing. So it's like it's always been being tuned into like the frequency of like humans, right?
Yeah.
Whereas some people I think they're not that. I've seen photographers at weddings that take great photos, but when you're looking at them from across the room, they're standing like this.
Yeah.
They got their arms crossed, or they're way far back shooting with long lenses, and they're all black, wearing all black, and they're like in the shadows, and they're introverts. Yeah, you've seen that, right?
Yeah. I can't say this on camera, but yeah.
Yeah,
I've
so
seen
me
this.
too. I've experienced that just this last year where I'm video and the photographer's there and lovely. We're having a great exchange or whatever, but the other videographer being like, yo, what's up? Like how, and I'm like, they're doing their own thing and the couple loved the photos and everything's great. But for me, there was something like a little bit I walked in the room and it was like, what's up? Like, and they're all like, oh shit. And like I'm like, oh hey, and that photographer's over there like
flying a wall with a camera.
yeah, and that works for some people. They'll be like they're like introduce themselves, and then they're like, and now I'm just.
But then you have to wonder, where's your potential? If that's the way you're going to operate, where's your potential to network with new clientele? Where's the potential for growth?
Yeah,
because it has to be pretty limited.
Hey, and at that point, if that's how you are, we go back to like that's your weakness. You don't have to be strong at that. Outsource that. Yeah. Somebody else can be out there representing you and getting you booked, and they can be selling you on the fact that like, oh, he's like a very introverted artist. He's gonna be like a fly on the wall, but he won't miss anything. You won't even know he's there, which is great and so totally non-obtrusive, whatever. I need to be sold the opposite way. Yeah. Oh, he's gonna be so close to you and so in your face that like you're gonna forget he's there because it's just gonna be like somebody else in your crew. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I let people know, like, oh, I will be definitely catching elbows. Somebody will probably pinch my butt on the dance floor. Yeah. Like I'm getting my foot stomped on. I get drinks spilled on me. I was like, I'm in it. And I'm in it so much that they will literally be like, we were looking for you at one point, like, or several times, like throughout the day. We're like, where's, and you're there, but you and I was like, the easiest way to become, it was like the easiest way to become invisible is to always be there. Yeah. And they're like, oh shit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So like, that's kind of my way of doing it. So you can like sell on what what your strengths are. And then have other people or have other things in place to like fill in your weaknesses. I'm not super organized. I need to have a system that organizes all my shit, or I'm going to be like, when do I shoot things? You know what I mean? Yeah. Or I'm going to be a hot fucking mess.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah, that was yesterday. I was supposed to shoot that wedding.
Right.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Now I don't have a business.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good spot to leave it off on. I like where the conversation traveled. You know what I'm saying? Like we jumped in different galaxies, but I think we evolved around one very important aspect, which is connection. Yeah. Right? Connection and then awareness. Yeah. Were the two like main things that we talked about in many, many different forms, but one being connected to not only what you love to do and what dream, what passion you want to follow, but being connected to the client that you're working with or just making sure that you're staying connected with your family because you're pursuing this dream to be able to provide and live a happier life with that family, right? So we don't want to forget them either. Correct. And then also just having the awareness of going like, hey, I need to rein something back, or I need to push harder, or, I'm getting in my own way, or, maybe I do need some help with one thing or the other. So I hope a lot of people will see this interview and actually get some of those things that I'm getting personally.
I hope so.
I'm taking a little
Yeah,
notes down
yeah.
on the side here, but I think the conversation is good, man.
It was
I really
awesome.
appreciate it.
You too,
So,
man. I appreciate this. This is
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
It's gonna be an awesome 21. Everybody
Yeah.
that's out there. It's gonna be a great year. So just keep pushing forward and tune in for the next one.
So where can they give them your website? Tell them where they can find you at.
Yeah, drop it below. It's easier to do that, right? Just
Yep.
check it out below. MackeyPhoto.com, at Mackey Photo on Instagram and all the socials and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, happy to answer any questions. If you guys got anything, hit me up anytime, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below, and I'll make sure that Mackey finds those and gets the answers for you. And it was fun, man. I appreciate it.
This was awesome.
So we're
Thanks.
going to do some photos now.
Yeah.
I got to take a piss.
Do it.
And then we could do some photos.
Let's do it.
All right. Fantastic.
Boom.
Thank
We
you
out,
again,
brother.
man.
Peace.
All right.
Cool.